Hello, and welcome back to the Becoming Ageless podcast, where we have conversations about whole health for naturally increasing health span and decreasing biological age. I'm your host, Robynn Fredericks, holistic health practitioner, and I believe in living agelessly. So my guest today is Dr. Katherine Clinton. She's a licensed naturopathic physician with a focus on gut health, autoimmunity, and psychoneuro-immunology. She's a respected author, speaker, and a pediatric health advocate. And she has an established practice in Eugene, Oregon. So Pacific Northwest, perfect place to be. Now, when Katherine was in middle school, I love this story, and I'm going to get her to touch on it a little bit. But when she was in medical school, she was diagnosed with and healed from an autoimmune disease that affects the gastrointestinal tract, leaving her with a passion to prevent autoimmunity in children everywhere. Dr. Katherine addresses the psychoneuro-immune system and gut health of children and families through a deeper connection with the world around us. She has multiple peer-reviewed medical journal publications, as well as guest writing for several publications, and is about to publish her much-awaited book. We're going to talk about that too. One of the things that I absolutely love about this woman is her philosophy. She's passionate about connections that we have with the world around us and how these connections can regenerate our health and the health of the planet. She sees an urgent need for healing our internal terrain, as well as healing the terrain of the world we live in. She is a beautiful soul, and I know you're going to love her as much as I do. So Katherine, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
I'm thrilled for you to be here. You know that I have to ask the question. Everybody wants to know, what are you doing in your life daily to intentionally increase your health span to live agelessly?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And it's a question that kind of trickles down, right? So it's what I do to take care of my health. And I also encourage my family and my patients to do the same thing. And really what I'm doing, Robyn, I'm connecting with the world around me in the way that my biology has really evolved to kind of pick up on these signals of safety and danger in the world around us. And so what I do is I try to flood my system with as many safety signals as I can. I know that there are a lot of danger signals in our environment, so to speak, toxins, processed food, polluted air and water, some things that we just can't control, right? Toxic people in our life. These things are somewhat out of our control. We can work towards them, but on a daily basis, right? They're out of our control, so out of my control. So what I like to do is work with what I can control, and that is increasing those safety signals in my biology. And we'll get to some of my favorite ways to do that, free, accessible to almost all of us out there. And that's really where I like to start, because there's so many options out there, and health care and wellness and dealing with a diagnosis, trying to age in a way that maintains our resiliency and our vibrancy. It really it can be expensive, and you can look at marketing and supplements and devices and treatments, but I really like to bring it back down to what's available in the world around us right now, and how can we access that in a way that fine-tunes our biology for the better.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I absolutely love that. You know, one of the things that really that I just really like work on in my practice and with myself is learning what the body is saying, talking to my body, getting it to talk back. And I know y'all, everybody out there listening, y'all are all going to laugh at me over this one. But do you know, I mean, every morning I get up and I talk to my microbiome, right? Because I mean, it's everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've nicknamed it because, I mean, that's kind of impersonal saying good morning, microbiome. So I nicknamed it Mikey. So every morning I'm like, hi, Mikey, what can I do for you today? And I try to be mindful of, you know, knowing that the microbiome is feeding me, nurturing me, protecting me, doing all of these wonderful things. So it's like, what can I give you today, Mikey, that's going to be good for you? And this one morning I was playing with just some skincare and putting on some really natural oils, and it just felt really good. And I heard this strange voice in my mind. And Katherine, that voice very simply said, "Thank you for taking care of us."
Oh.
And I just like, "You're welcome." I wasn't expecting you to talk back like that, but okay. Granted, that's the only time I've ever heard that. But it's our body, the way that it works, and it doesn't always speak to us quite so clearly, but it's giving us signals all of the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some of the signals are scary, right? Some of the signals are symptoms and accelerated aging and hair loss and, pain, actual symptoms. And we don't like to think that that's our body talking to us, and in fact, if you were to Google what causes autoimmunity, the interwebs would tell us that it's your body attacking itself. And that couldn't be more far from the truth, right? What's happening with autoimmunity is that your body is responding to those signals of danger. And once you can kind of replace some of those with signals of safety, then the biology starts to normalize and balance again. It goes back to that state of homeostasis. Right. But those messages of pain and all those symptoms that we go to the doctor to try to get rid of are actually our body speaking to us and letting us know, like, hey, something's not right and we're trying our best to deal with it. But if you could give us a little help, hey, Mikey, what do you need?
Exactly. I love that philosophy too, because so much, I was exposed to black mold in a really bad way in 2009. And even though I practiced holistic nutrition and things at that time, I didn't have that many studies on mold. It wasn't really talked about too very much at that point. And all of these weird things just started happening to me. First, my dog started getting sick, and I became gluten intolerant. Out of in like 45 years, I've always been able to have gluten. It's not a mainstay, but I could have it, and all of these different things just started happening. And the intolerance went from 24 hours to 10 hours to immediate, that I could see some kind of reaction. Mm-hmm. And no one knew what was going on. Every blood test came back normal. My dog died within 6 months, and they're like, it looks like cancer, but none of his blood work shows cancer. So again, everybody's like, what is going on? And, it was only through research that I could figure out what was happening with my body. And it was being thrown into an autoimmune. And so many people out there, they think, oh, autoimmune, we've got to shut down the immune system. We've got to fight against the body fighting. Right. And, just that whole thinking is enough to stress you out. Right. So I would love to hear how you conquered a little bit of what you went through in med school.
Absolutely. Yes. So when I was in medical school, it was my second year, and it was that year that's really that initiation year. You have to be at clinic and sign the sheet by 7 a.m. and long clinic hours, lots of classes. And I just didn't have the foundation. It was the straw that kind of broke the camel's back. And I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune condition that attacks the GI tract, the colon specifically. And I was diagnosed with Hashimoto thyroiditis and multiple GI parasites and Lyme disease. So it was really a difficult time, and I was in the right place. I was in naturopathic medical school working in tandem with OHSU and the acupuncture school in Portland as well. So it was really access to the best medicine available. And I was able to use lifestyle and nutrition to kind of piece myself back together to the quality of life that I had before I was diagnosed, but those of us who have chronic diseases and autoimmunity know that it's not, it doesn't start the day you're diagnosed, right? And so when you can put yourself back together to achieve that quality of life, it seems miraculous. And it was. I was able to work and see patients, and I was getting better, and my patients were getting better. But there was something missing. It was the building up of that physical body, but there was still a huge piece with that psychoneuro-immunology, what my thoughts were doing, how my trauma that I came into this world and the trauma that I've gotten from this world, how that all played into it. And from there, I really started researching mitochondrial health and how it all plays together. And that's where I'm at now. And it's, Robynn, I couldn't be more excited about it, because there's so many of us that live in the world today that have trauma or are under chronic stress, and getting away from that is not always an option, right? Our jobs, our family, whatever it may be, the systems that are in place in our education and our healthcare, all of these things impact a lot of us on a daily level. And so finding that relationship with the world around us, with the literal trees and the sun and the weather, the rain, and just the very most basic things that we can connect with, really ushered in this sense of belonging that I and my patients have reported the same thing, had never experienced before. I use the analogy of a puzzle piece, right? So we've done puzzles before, and when you have one of those stubborn puzzle pieces that doesn't quite fit, and it's in the
hammer
right
it
place.
down.
Yeah. So maybe you went too quickly and one little side is sticking up, right?
Right.
That's how it felt. It was like, okay, I'm in the right spot. I've got my physical health back, and I'm doing the life that I thought I was going to be doing. But there's this great disconnect, this discomfort, this constant sort of friction from not being at ease with my place in the world and the world around me. And that's really what changed the way I practice medicine and the way I live my life and the way I raise my family, because those connections are really foundational, if not the most important piece of our health. And even though they're so simple and they sound so, we can gloss over them with like, yes, we need to go outside in the sun. But when we get down to it, it's really the drivers of life. These things are what power not only the trees and the animals around us, but our biology is dependent on the world around us. And when we start to really break it apart and look deeper, we see how foundational it is. And once we experience that feeling of being a puzzle piece that fits, oh, there's nothing like that.
That is amazing. It is amazing. I am, I'm sitting here looking outside my window right now, and it's a 75-degree day, and we're just breaking into spring. And I'm just like, I should be out there. I should be out there. I should be out there. I try to do my grounding every day, and early morning sunlight. I know you have a lot of steps for us, or action points for us coming up, but before we get into all of that and everything, I want to know a little bit about, whole health messaging. We're talking about how, we need the connection with the earth, with the connection with each other, but what is that connection inside of us? How are we talking to ourselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we look at what's happening, we're so used to dividing everything up, right? We've got the brain and we've got the nervous system and we have the heart and the gut and the microbiome, but really they're a huge team. They're really a networking communication network. And each of these different points, like the gut, for instance, they are assimilating information from the outside, and each of them are doing it, right? Our heart does the same thing. Our lungs absolutely do the same thing. I was really surprised to learn that the quality of the air we breathe has more impact on the composition of our gut microbiome than the food we eat, than our genetics or our ethnicity.
Isn't that
None
crazy?
of those things. Isn't that wild? I mean, we really are so intimately connected with our environment. And so each of these pieces of our body are working to kind of assess the situation and send signals of safety or danger through that vagus nerve. And our vagus nerve is the longest of our cranial nerves, right? So it's coming down from the brain and it innervates our heart and our gut and our lungs. It helps regulate our digestion, our respiration, our heartbeat. All of these things are intimately connected. And when we think of the nervous system and the brain and the vagus nerve, we often think of this top-down control, right? Where the brain is coordinating things and the players are following the orders. But really, we're seeing 70 to 90% of the signals are coming to the brain rather than from the brain. So our brain is really like this processing center, right, of all these different messages, rather than this conductor and driver of what's going on. It's really the sorting, messaging, processing center.
Yeah.
And so what's happening is that vagus nerve is translating and transmitting all of these signals that are coming in from the environment and from our internal environment. So when we talk about the vagus nerve, we can't talk about it only in the present because it's part of our nervous system, and that nervous system gets hardwired. And so let's just take a teeny step back and talk about that. So our vagus nerve houses our nervous system, which is comprised of two branches. So we have the sympathetic nervous system, which is if a bear jumped in front of me right now,
Right. Fight or
I would
flights and
fight,
yeah.
flight, freeze. All of those are sympathetic nervous system responses. We're dumping adrenaline and cortisol and epinephrine into our system. We're shunting blood away from our vital organs to our muscles so we can run away from the bear. We are severing that communication to our frontal lobe, which is in charge of our calm, rational decisions, and shifting it back to that hind brain so that we can, make quick, instinctual run away from the bear decisions. And then our other side of the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, is the rest, digest, you are safe now side of our nervous system. This is where we grow, repair, assimilate, right? And this is where we should be spending a lot of our time. But in modern day living, a lot of us are in that parasympathetic mode, right? We got the alarm that goes off. We're rushing to make the time. We are in traffic driving with proverbial bears. We
Right.
work at the office with bears. Sometimes we live with bears. So, these responses can become kind of their pathways that become more and more ingrained and embedded in our biology.
Right.
And this, when we look at epigenetics and what happens to a person coming into this world, we know that we all sort of come in with a blueprint
Right.
of our stress response. And it's really interesting, with my family, I can see directly, like my father, myself, one of my children, we all have a very distinct reaction to stress. And it's not helpful right now. It was helpful probably in a time where we needed to get away and survive,
Right.
but it's not always helpful to be, come into this world hardwired for a strong stress response.
Right.
We really need to be swinging between both sides. And when we talk about early childhood trauma or chronic stress trauma at any age, we see several things happening at the same time. We see a shift in the gut microbiome to more harmful species. We see that shift in our neurology. Our immune system takes a massive hit, and we're not producing T regulatory cells. Now, those are the cells in our immune system that put out inflammation. So they stop our autoimmune reactions, they stop inflammatory fires, allergic responses, all that inflammatory stuff. Those T regulatory cells go around saying, it's okay, we're done with that, calm down.
There are firefighters.
Yes, exactly. The little superheroes of the immune system. And when they are decreased, then not only do we have that inflammation going rampant, we see intestinal permeability rise, meaning we have leaky gut, which, is like the circle. So then we have more inflammation. And what we're seeing in the research is that if this is not addressed, these things can last a lifetime, meaning that the shift in the microbiome from beneficial to harmful species, that can last a lifetime. That decrease in T regulatory cells, that can last a lifetime. The neurological pathways that we were just talking about to the forebrain versus the hindbrain, the frontal lobe with that calm, rational decision, those things, those shifts can last a lifetime if we're not addressing them. And so that's really powerful, especially when we add in our own internal dialogue to that, because oftentimes with trauma comes that subconscious script of, I didn't do it right, I'm not good enough. And all of these things are impacting our biology and the biology of our children and our grandchildren, generations to come. And that's heavy, especially when, as a person who has dealt with autoimmune conditions and trauma and internal dialogues that aren't healthy, right? But the power in that is that one thought can lay the pathway. 2 positive thoughts can ingrain that pathway. A few positive thoughts each day can start to create that canyon that we're talking about, that pathway that turns into a canyon. So the power, even though it sounds overwhelming, if we come back to where that action takes place, it's within us, and we have such agency and power there.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. I was talking to somebody the other day because they were like, oh, all of this stuff, epigenetics, it's all woo-woo. And I'm like, it's really not woo-woo, it's science now, and it's funny to me back, in the 80s and 90s, I remember, all the affirmations and the Tony Robbins stuff. And, it was okay back then to say, whatever the mind can believe, the body can achieve. We said those things back then, but we didn't really understand why or how. It was just a motivational thought. But today we actually have an understanding that the mind takes that information and uses it to help create a blueprint. And so perception, truly scientifically, is actually changing the way that your body moves forward.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. It's amazing. And to be empowered with that knowledge of what's happening in there. I remember when I was sick, it was like feeling such betrayal. Like, why did my body stop? And,
You're broken.
Yeah. And when it stays that way, that becomes anger and resentment, right? I mean, for me, it did. And so you're sick, and you're sad, and you're angry, and you're resentful, and those emotions feed on each other. And so it is just incredible to really understand what's happening on a biological level, because it's important for us, especially now, especially in these last few years, seeing the importance of personal agency, the importance of building resilience within ourselves, within our families, within our communities. And this is how we do it. We do it with internal work and connecting with our external environment.
I like that. I like that a lot. With the vagus nerve, and so many people are talking about the vagus nerve right now and vagal tone. And, you know, for the average Joe out there that's listening, they're like, okay, so what exactly can we do to, you know, kind of jumpstart that parasympathetic system? What are there easy steps, easy things that we can just like humming? Does that actually work? Or
yes. So there's a list of things we can do, and I'll get into them. But first, I want to say that for anybody that is a little bit familiar with this, a little bit familiar with vagal tone, or is going to go now research this on the internet, right? There is this perspective with it, almost like it's training, right? And I see people on social media, on the internet, talking about this, like, we got to get that vagal tone, we got to train it. And, you see people, they're out in the cold and I'm training it, I'm getting it. And that's just quite the opposite of vagal tone and high vagal tone, which is in that ability to switch back and forth, right? And when we're training that vagus nerve, when we're trying to increase vagal tone, what we're looking for is really flooding the system with those safety signals. So cold plunges and, ending a shower with cold, exposure to cold, it absolutely does reset the vagus nerve. Now, if you are out in the cold and you are miserable and it is stressful, it really is doing the opposite. And I have patients come in who are doing all the things, but they're doing them with such friction and stress and tension that it's working against them, right? Yeah. So if that cold plunge doesn't bring you to a point where you are accepting the cold and coming to a spot of peace, that's the vagus reset right there. It's not this is so horrible and cold. That's not where the reset comes, right? And if that's what you are experiencing with a cold plunge and you want to keep working and get to that spot of acceptance, that's awesome. And if you don't, that's awesome too, because you can reset that vagus nerve with a warm bath, snuggling a pet or a family member. You can get together with people you love and sing, chant. So all of those things can really, really help with the vagus nerve. And really, when we look at all the things that help reset the vagus nerve, we've got exposure to cold, exposure to light. So getting out in the middle of the day and getting natural light, even if the sun isn't shining. Like I am outside today and there's no blue sky or sun. You can kind of point in the direction of it, but it's not a beautiful sun. But that sunlight, that full spectrum light really helps not only our vagus nerve function really well, but it helps repair any damage there. Light is a really foundational piece of nervous system health, vagal tone, all of it. And so again, we're seeing this music, movement. And again, this movement doesn't have to be training for a marathon. It's what feels good. That movement creates infrared energy that gets our mitochondria going, that get our vagus nerve going. It's all connected. And once we can fire in on one spot, it's really like a cascade. It's really like a cascade.
Nice.
And
I like that. I like that. And I like the fact that I don't have to go and do a cold plunge because, I am not up for ice water. I don't think I could do it. Cold showers at the end. Okay, that I can do. You have so much information and I don't want to keep you for an entire day, although I could so easily keep you, but you have some action points that I know our listeners would really find great value in. Can you kind of lead us down that path?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I would challenge anyone listening or watching today to try these out for, I tell my patients a week, because when I first say them, it sounds like, what? Wait, I wanted the pill or the device or the thing. And I get that. I really do. But give it a chance because it is way more profound than any pill or device I've ever encountered, honestly. And I'm not against pharmaceuticals, right? When you're dealing with patients who are really, really sick, short times of pharmaceuticals can be really important. Right. But my foundation is really getting people to use the free, accessible things in the world around us. And so where does that land us? That lands us in a routine of connecting with the outside world. And a lot of listeners, first thing they think of is, well, I live in downtown Manhattan and there is no park here. And let me just tell you that asphalt, concrete cannot disrupt or, obliterate the electrons from the earth and grounding. So wherever you are, if you can leave your house and get outside, you are going to be able to receive the benefits of those free electrons. And when we get down to the nitty gritty of what's happening with those mitochondria and the fascia and our network throughout every cell, every organ, every tissue, we see that mitochondrial firing is really, really important. And we can think of it, we can kind of dumb it down to free electrons. Like, where can we get those free electrons in the world around us to help fire those mitochondria, right? And so we can do it with movement, we can do it with light, we can do it with magnetism. And if we incorporate that in a daily routine, so let's say that we go outside in the morning and we get that AM sunlight. That AM sunlight is setting up an entire cascade of hormones in our biology. We've got growth hormone and dopamine and serotonin, all of these things that wake us up and make us feel alive and happy and creative and ready to go. And that AM sunlight, if we can do that at the same time as moving and grounding. Yeah. So if we can incorporate a barefoot walk for 5 minutes in the AM sun. And what's AM sun? It's anything before 10 a.m., right? Okay. There is some absolute magic to sunset, but if we can't wake up at sunset, there's still that spectrum of light within those AM hours before 10 that will set up that biological cascade. Right. And so if we can do that while moving and while coming in contact with that stream of free electron flow. And, here we are starting to come into spring, but it is still quite cold. And I've practiced grounding barefoot, but if someone's going to go out tomorrow, it might be very uncomfortable, right? So it doesn't have to be barefoot. It can be a walk in that AM sun where you then touch a tree, right? It doesn't have to be barefoot grounding. You can really make it customized to where you are. Yeah. And if it is really cold, that cold also helps fire those mitochondria. Yeah. And so that AM sunlight with a little bit of movement, and getting as many free electrons as you can, right? And where do we get those electrons? We can get them from the earth. We can get them from trees and the plants around us. We can get them from the environment, walking next to rivers, next to oceans, with that electron spray.
Right. Or even the dew on the grass first thing in the morning.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So that as a first piece really sets up our biology for the rest of the day. So if we can then at night when the sun goes down, if we can kind of follow that rhythm within our homes. And of course, I'm here in the Pacific Northwest and it gets dark at 6, sometimes at 4:30, in the earlier. Yeah. And so I'm not saying that we should turn off our lights at 5 and just, get super weird, but there are ways that we can lessen the effect of those artificial lights, right? So for instance, at my house, we turn off the mostly blue lights. We shift to a more red lighting, salt lamp candles or lights. And it's something that the kids really actually like to do. So we do it in sort of levels, right? So when the sun goes down, the blue lights go off. Then we do another level where we lower the lights and the salt lamps come out. And what this is doing is it's taking that big dump of serotonin that we get with the AM sunlight and it's turning it into melatonin. And melatonin is what's helping us get a good night's sleep. It has a really profound impact on our immune system, as well as our hormone cascade overall. So just with those actions right there, just setting ourselves up to follow that solar system routine, syncing in line with the sun and getting a little bit of movement in the beginning of the day, trying to harvest those electrons in the world around us, this can have such a profound effect. And if we can do that, I think that everyone today listening will actually feel such a difference. And Robynn, if I can share one of my favorite things to kind of end this up, and people at home listening today can Google this. They can check out Heart Math Institute. There are loads of great exercises. I know, I love them too. It's just our heart coherence and our heart health right now is so paramount. That's my mission, is to help us build resilience so that we can make the changes in our communities and the world and the planet we live on. And so one of the things I'd like to do right now is have us just do a quick 2-minute heart coherence exercise where we are coming into our breathing and our heart space and just taking a second to feel the difference between where we're at right now and where we can be in 2 minutes. So I invite everybody to just kind of get comfortable where you're sitting. Let those shoulders come down. And let's close our eyes and take a couple nice breaths, nice deep inhales and exhaling out. Doesn't matter the rhythm, whatever feels nice and comfortable and relaxing for you. And let's take a nice deep breath and let the tension out from our shoulders. Let those shoulders come down. Let your temples relax. And this time when we're breathing, let's bring our attention to our actual physical heart. So when we're taking a nice deep breath, let's bring that breath into that heart space. Nice deep breathing into that heart space. And if it helps, you can put a hand there. And now I want us to continue nice, deep breathing into that heart space. But this time I want us to think of something that brings us joy. It can be a memory. It can be a dream, a goal. I love to think of those hugs that my children give me where their arms wrap all around me, or the feeling of that warm sun laying on a warm sun-kissed beach. Whatever it is for you that brings that sense of calm, joy, gratitude, actually take a second to not only think of it, but feel that emotion as you breathe into that heart space. And let's take one more deep breath together, holding on to that feeling of love and gratitude. And exhale. And thank you all so much for joining me on that. And what a difference that is, right?
Absolutely. That felt so good. Thank you for walking us through that. That was
Absolutely.
really nice. I like that. And, for everyone out there who says, oh, I don't know how to meditate, you just did it. And it's,
Absolutely.
it's a
Absolutely.
beautiful, beautiful thing. And I felt my heart rate slow down and just complete and peace all around. It was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Um,
the wonderful thing about pairing deep breathing, relaxation exercises with those feelings of love and gratitude is it actually changes our heart rate variability, and it actually increases our vagal tone. So that is a really great exercise that we can do when times feel overwhelming and we really want to sink in and get coherent.
Absolutely. And I remember I've told so many clients this, and they come back with these amazing reports. I'm like, you're in line somewhere and you're feeling a little bit stressed because people are short-tempered. You don't have to close your eyes to do this. You just kind of get inside yourself a little bit, take a couple of deep breaths and relax those shoulders, and you'd be amazed at the difference.
Absolutely.
So that's wonderful. Really fast, you have a new book coming out, Interconnected, a new theory of health and disease. I am so
Yeah.
excited for this book. Oh my goodness, Katherine, really fast. Can you give us a summary version of what this book is about?
Yes, I am just taking a deep dive and looking at the ways we think about health and disease and how we have looked at it for the last couple hundred years, and some missteps that we have taken and some things that we've ignored that we shouldn't have. And really looking into, like I've talked about today, the connections with the world around us and how they can heal not only us and our families and our communities, but actually the planet we live on.
That's awesome. So you guys, hopefully you'll follow Dr. Katherine, you'll be following me. We will definitely let you know when that book is available. Do you have any idea when it might be coming out?
I am hoping that it comes out this spring.
Oh, awesome. That is not very far away at all. Well, Katherine, Dr. Clinton, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation today. Your information so beyond inspirational and truly transformative. I can't get the word out. I'm too relaxed. I hope our listeners and our viewers all learned ways to implement this kind of wisdom. And if you want to find out more about Dr. Clinton, you can visit her website at drkatherinclinton.com, or you can keep up with everything she has going on Instagram, which is at Dr. Katherine Clinton, or on Facebook at Dr. Katherine Clinton, ND. And again, those links will be in our show notes. And if you want to catch up with me, find out all about me over on social media, I am Robynn everywhere, and that's ROBYNNLIN, and also my website, robynlynn.com. Again, everything's in the show notes. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Katherine, so much for being with us today. And I hope you'll join me here next time on Becoming Ageless as we uncover new tips, tricks, actions, and science to increase your whole health span. Thanks, guys, and stay ageless, y'all.